What's going on, y'all? In honor of Gilbert Burns fighting Michael Morales this weekend, I am here to give a set of UFC Apex fighters and just rate their careers overall because I reckon some of these guys, if we only consider Apex fights, then they would be guaranteed Hall of Famers. And unfortunately, I know how we all feel about the Apex. We all hate it. We all want it to burn down. But the UFC is not going to do that. Dana White is lazy as shit, and quite frankly, he doesn't want to travel around the world for the UFC and would rather promote boxing fights. But regardless, we've had the lows with the Apex, we've had the highs with the Apex, and I'm just here to recap some of the best and worst fighters coming out of the Apex. Uh, Quick thing to note though, I'm not really gonna consider the women's careers that much because I can't really pay attention to them half the time, but regardless, here's a list of UFC fighters from the Apex and just rating their careers overall based on the Apex solely. Starting off with the inspiration to this list, Gilbert Burns. This dude has a Hall of Fame career in the Apex. He's only lost, I believe, is to Kamaru Usman and Sean Brady. And outside of that, he's been doing decently well in the Apex. I believe he submitted Neil Magny. And actually, no, I don't really remember much of anything after that. But regardless, Gilbert Burns, win or lose, he's always in a fun fight. He's probably gonna get tuned up by Michael Morales, unfortunately, because I think Gilbert Burns is cooked. But he's very fun to watch regardless. He does look a little bit slower now, but again, that shouldn't take away from Gilbert Burns in his prime when he was fucking dropping Damian Maya and shit like that. So yeah, I rate this guy. He should have a Hall of Fame career if we're only counting Apex fights. Moving on, we got John Strickland. Here's the fucking thing, you guys. Being a crafty vet in the Apex, that's bullshit, man. I deserve a Hall of Fame career. Sean Strickland, I would consider him a Hall of Famer, but he's been fighting a lot of pay-per-views recently, and I don't see him really coming back to the Apex anytime soon. I know he had that complete stinker against Drickus, but outside of that, the dude is, I guess, must-see TV in the at least for the press conferences because he knows how to make a press conference hype. Are his fights must watch? Not really, but considering how the UFC thinks that he is a superstar in the making, they'll probably have him on more pay-per-views. I Again, like if he was confirmed to be only fighting in the Apex, then of course he's like first ballot Hall of Famer, but I think the UFC has better plans for him, and I don't see him fighting in the Apex that much now that I look at it. So yeah, I'm gonna say that Sean Strickland, he's a crafty vet. All right, moving on to he's all right. We got Daniel Rodriguez. He wins a lot of fights. Am I gonna say they're absolute barn burners? Like at one point it was, but recently he hasn't been looking too good. I mean, like he went to a split decision with Alex Baroto in 2025. I'm sorry, 2024. I don't think D-Rod is he's not must-see TV, but he's consistently winning his fights, and I think that's something to note. And it's not like he's completely boring because at some point he can just drop you. Like when he fought Santiago Ponzinibbio. I know this wasn't in the Apex, but that was a pretty fun fight. So I think that D-Rod, he racks up a couple more wins in the Apex, and I can see him becoming a potential crafty vet, or maybe having a Hall of Fame career here in the UFC Apex. All right, moving on to the Apex NPC, we got Cody Brundage. I can't believe the UFC actually put this guy in the co-main event of an Apex card. I don't know why they did that. Like, I guess it's because they don't want to make the people who lost to Bo Nickel look that badly. But the words co-main event and Cody Brundage should not belong in the same sentence, let alone the same paragraph. Cody Brundage, outside of fluke slamming Zachary Reese and beating up Julian Marquez, who shouldn't even be in the UFC. His only notable wins are to DQ by getting back of the headshots. So I don't really rate Cody Brundage. If you offer any sort of resistance, he will like quit. And I don't rate anything he does spectacularly, which is why I view him kind of as an NPC. And hopefully, if he is still on the roster, which I'm not really sure about right now, hopefully Cody Brundage doesn't show himself in fight nights or pay per views that people actually care about. And moving on to why the Apex must burn down, we got Torres Finney. The only time I would root for Cody Brundage to win is if he's fighting Torres Finney. This guy, Torres Finney over here, is a terrorist of the sport. Now, is this recency bias after when he fought Robert Valentin? Kinda, but you can't tell me what Torres Finney did is a genuine mockery of mixed martial arts. He's like taking down Robert Valentin, and he's refusing to advance position or try to hurt Robert Valentin. I know that Finney won the fight because he just kind of neutralized Valentin and he just held him down for the 3 rounds. But I'm sorry, I don't rate Torres Finney at all. If you're someone who actually enjoys watching Torres Finney fight, stop lying to yourself because he should not be in the octagon, you know? Like have him wrestle in like NCAA or some bullshit like that. Like I don't want to see him fight in the octagon. Like moving back up to the Hall of Fame career, we got Jared Cannonier. This dude has been on every single banger fight in the Apex. His fight with Gregory Rodriguez was crazy to watch. His fight with Kyle Barallo was an absolute war. He has he knocked out Jack Hermanson in the Apex, I believe. Like this dude has had a lot of fights in the Apex. Like if the UFC wants like a half decent Apex card, they just call up Jared Cannonier. And I do feel bad for him though because the UFC has no intention of keeping Cannonier like in pay-per-view spotlights or like let alone fight night spotlights. The one time they did, it kind of ended in a bullshit stoppage with Nasruddin and Mavov. And but Jared Cannonier, he's made a career for himself in the Apex. Whenever I see Cannonier in the Apex, I see a glimmer of hope. I usually am going into an Apex card going, fuck. Why am I watching this shit? Fortunately, Jared Cannonier, he is a bright light here in the shitty ass Apex that needs to be bombed. And yeah, if uh if Cannonier's career only consists of UFC Apex fights, first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. Up next, we got Jack Hermanson. Dude's a crafty vet in the Apex, you know. He never fights, which is the only reason why I can't put him as a Hall of Famer. But when he does, especially in the Apex, it's mildly entertaining. Like his fight with Joe Pyfer, it was very smart, and I kind of enjoyed it. You know, he basically took out Piper's legs in the early rounds and just stung him with the jab every time Piper tried to, you know, meaty hook his way into a TKO. Hermanson's really good. The only thing that holds him back though, he doesn't have any knockout power. Like similar to Sean Strickland. Like watching Hermanson, it's like, yeah, he's technically good, but you're not expecting a oh shit, he got knocked down or like, oh shit, he's getting a submission. Like Jack Hermanson's just good everywhere. And I can respect that in a way. And honestly, I do kind of enjoy him fraud checking prospects, but unfortunately, he doesn't fight enough for me to consider him a Hall of Famer, but still, he is a very crafty vet. And if you're not this ungodly prospect, like undefeated, 13-0 from Dagestan, Russia, or something like that, he will most likely fraud check you. So yeah, I say Jack Hermanson overall a very crafty bet. Moving on to the all right tier, we got someone else who's fighting on this week's card, Thiago Moises. Thiago Moises, he beats up cans in the Apex, but outside of that, every time he fights like some decent level opposition, recently he's been losing a lot. Lost to Ludovic Klein, lost to Benoit Saint-Denis, lost to uh, lost to Islam Makhachev back in the day, but that was when Moises was considered a decent prospect. I don't know. He's just been losing a lot. I don't remember all the losses off the top of my head, but at the same time, I don't remember any of the wins off the top of my head because whenever he wins, he's usually fighting some absolute scrub and probably getting an exciting finish. But to be fair, it's against an absolute scrub. So I'm gonna say that Thiago Moises, maybe if he wins a few more fights, I can see him as a crafty vet. But he's been losing a lot recently, and I don't really like that for as a crafty vet because you gotta win a few fights recently in order to be considered a crafty vet. Moving on to the Apex NPC tier, we got Tuco Tokos. I don't know if he's fought in that many Apex cards, but when I see this guy, I know I'm in for a highlight reel KO because he's probably gonna get knocked out within the first 2 rounds. He doesn't throw anything. He just smiles at you menacingly. And the fans are just there hoping that he gets knocked out in the first 2 rounds. Because if he's winning a fight, he ain't doing shit. He really ain't. And I just consider him an NPC because I don't know why the UFC still has him. Maybe it's to like kind of test their prospects, but he's not good. He doesn't do much of anything in his fights, and he should be in the apex where he belongs, getting knocked out by like the next up and coming prospect. Moving on to why the apex must burn down, we got Con Olfley. Now, many of you probably don't know who this guy is. If you don't, Con Olfley was the runner up to last year's The Ultimate Fighter, and Con Olfley is fucking dog shit. I He had a scrap with Marian Santos for the finale of the Ultimate Fighter, which was in the Apex. All right, that was pretty good. But since then, watching Khan Ofli fight is atrocious. He fought Muhammad Naimov in a fight night in Saudi Arabia earlier this year. Yeah, do not let this man back in a fight night where people actually care about the event. Just have him fight in the Apex. Matter of fact, if the Apex is gonna get bombed, I hope it's in the middle of a Con Olfley fight because I ain't trying to watch that shit. I really ain't. Moving on back to the Hall of Fame careers, we got Brandon Royval. This dude has been secretly building up third title shot against Pantoja in the Apex. He went to war with Tatsuro Taira and came out on top. I believe he beat Moreno. I know that wasn't in the Apex, but I don't know. It was kind of a similar fight. Overall, Royval, I'm sorry, he is very good, and whenever he's fighting in the Apex, I actually enjoy it. Do I think? I don't know why the UFC doesn't try to put him on more pay-per-views or fight nights in general, but he's very solid. Like he knows how to talk trash in the mic. He knows how to promote himself, and he's very skilled. So I don't know why he's fought that many Apex fights. Maybe it's because the UFC wants to keep him away from the title shot against Pantoja. But overall, I think because he's fought in the Apex so many times throughout the course of his career, he's built a Hall of Fame career here in the UFC Apex. Moving on to the crafty vets, we got Grant Dawson. Now, prior to getting chinned by Bobby Green, this dude was a Hall of Famer. But unfortunately, you can't be getting chinned by Bobby Green in 2023. Outside of that, though, Grant Dawson's been looking solid. He's ragdolled every opponent. occasionally got a few TKOs via ground and pound, and occasionally got submissions over like decent level opposition. Overall, Grant Dawson, he's a very solid fighter that the UFC is trying to do their best not to get him close to the top 10 or even or let alone the top 5 of the UFC rankings. But I do rate Grant Dawson overall as a fighter, which is why he is a crafty vet because this dude's been in the company for a while. It's just the UFC does not have any intentions of letting him go outside of the apex. And moving on to like all right opposition, we got Sadiq Yusuf. Sadiq Yusuf's like really good. Like I whenever you watch him fight, like you can tell the guy's skilled. He just loses a lot, which unfortunately bumps him down from the crafty vet status. Like fair enough, he's losing to guys like Edson Barboza, Arnold Allen, but again, he's lost a lot of fights. So I know he's good, but there's a clear gap between Sadiq Yusuf and the guys up here, which is why I'll consider him as an all right fighter considering his UFC Apex run. Moving on down to the Apex NPC, we got Far. I don't know, Javid or Farid. I I think it's Javid. I think it's Javid Basharat. Javid Basharat. Watching him fight makes me sleepy sometimes. You know, he shows no. It's like watching Leon Edwards, but at bantamweight. So you know that shit's really bad. Like Leon Edwards, like you at least like are threatened by the fact that he can throw like something that's hard occasionally. Like maybe he'll sneak up a head kick against you. Like Farid Basharat is not only worse than Leon Edwards, he also shows less aggression than Leon Edwards, and you can't be doing that. You just can't be doing that and expecting me to enjoy that fight. So Farid Basharat or Javid, I know one of them's decent, but I keep getting confused as to which one it is. You know what? I'm gonna say Javid because Javid recently lost to Ricky Simone. So yeah, Javid Basharat, kind of a fraud, and I don't know why people were hyping him up in like 2022, 2023. Like the dude lost to Ayman Zahabi. Like I know Ayman Zahabi just beat Jose Aldo, but Ayman Zahabi, I still don't think he's good. I really don't. So if you're losing to Ayman Zahabi, unless you're a legend like Jose Aldo, that's simply unacceptable. And that's why the UFC keeps you only in the Apex. And moving on to why the Apex must burn down, we got Dylan Budka. Again, many of you probably don't know who this guy is. If you don't, Dylan Budka, he is a very decorated American wrestler who can't implement wrestling in his fights. I know that's crazy to say, but I've just never seen him like shoot a takedown successfully against like absolute like ragdolls like Cesar Almeida. So I don't really rate Dylan Budka at all. Please, like Dylan Budka makes me depressed watching fights because he's just holding on to like shitty double legs for his dear life as he's getting his head caved into the canvas. And unfortunately for us, we're probably gonna have to watch more of Dylan Budka's fights because for some reason the UFC is not letting go of Dylan Budka right now. But overall, I think Dylan Budka, he's arguably worse than Torres Finney because at least Torres Finney is able to implement his wrestling. Dylan Budka can't even do anything. Like he can't strike, he can't wrestle despite being a decorated NCAA wrestler, and he has no jujitsu. So he's literally a punching bag. And yeah, that's why the Apex should burn down because we're putting on Dylan Budka in feature fights or main cards in general in the Apex because for fucking Dylan Budka of all people. All right, moving back up to the Hall of Fame career, we got Curtis Blades. Now, this dude has a notorious track record of falling short in big fights, but in the Apex, he's pretty solid. Uh, I don't know how many fights he's had in the Apex, but when he's on an Apex card, this dude will probably win the fight, unless it's Derek Lewis, because for some reason Curtis Blades forgets to shoot takedowns immediately against Derek Lewis. But overall, I think Curtis Blades, he's a very solid fighter. He's been done dirty a lot in the throughout the course of his career, and he always gets knocked out whenever he's in close for a title shot. Ironically, in the Apex, a part of me uh thinks that's actually why he deserves a Hall of Fame career because he's been in multiple title contention fights. And win or lose, Curtis Blades is always in an exciting fight, at least in the Apex. I know he's had a lot of stinkers whenever he's fighting in front of crowds. But yeah, I rate Curtis Blades overall throughout his Apex career, even though I have no idea when's the last time he won an Apex fight. All right, moving on, we got someone who's decent. We got Dan Ige. If you need a highlight reel KO to revive a dead Apex card, Dan Ige your man. Give him some fucking scrub. Like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Yeah, Con Offley. Like, Dan Ige will piece up Con Offley and just knock him out cold with like 2, 3 punches. And outside of that, though, I know Dan Ige, every time he fights like decent level opposition, it always goes to a decision. But if you need a highlight reel KO in the Apex, because we need more of those, Dan Ige your guy. Dan Ige will get the job done, and then Dan Ige will probably fight against a top ranked contender and go to a 29-28 decision. All right, moving on to someone who I rate like all right overall. We got Alex Perez. Alex Perez, he's had a lot of bangers in the Apex. Knocked out Mateusz Nicolau. Went unfortunately then right before that he went back and forth with what's his name, Mohammed Makayev. And I believe recently he lost to Tatsuro Taira in the Apex. I think he's decent. Now could I be saying this just because he flatlined Mateusz Nicolau? Maybe, but in hindsight, like Alex Perez, I think he's been done a little bit dirty throughout the course of his career, and it's also a mixture of just bad luck in general for him. But overall, I think he's all right. He has lost a little bit too much for my liking. Maybe if he wins a few more fights, like fraud checks a few more flyweight prospects, I can bump him up to a crafty vet. But unfortunately, he's lost a little bit too much for my liking, and but he's all right. He's all right. Moving on to Apex NPCs, we got Magomed Gadzhulov. If you don't know who this guy is, uh, I don't blame you. He recently got fraud checked. I don't remember who he got fraud checked by. Like it was some can that the UFC expected him to absolutely destroy, and that can just wall wrestled him for 3 rounds. And Gadzhulov does not have any semblance of wrestling, which is weird considering he is Dagestani. But even on the feet, he's not all that impressive. Like he can outstrike you, but it's not like he's flatlining fools with 1 or 2 punches. It's not like he's throwing some slick combinations. He's just fast, and it'll just like minorly outpoint you throughout the first 3 rounds if he wins. So I'm gonna say that Malgomed Gachulov, he's an NPC. He should be kept in the Apex, and hopefully we don't get to see him fight in like actual fights that we care. All right. Moving on to why the Apex must burn, we got Ryan Spann. Now, Ryan Spann at one point was a very talented light heavyweight prospect, but then after he moved up to heavyweight, he became a complete blob. Like he got tuned up by Waldo Cortez Acosta and made Waldo Cortez Acosta look like a legitimate boxer. Let me tell you this. I know Waldo Cortez Acosta isn't this NPC blob, but he's pretty close to that. And if you're getting knocked out by Waldo Cortez Acosta, I'm sorry, you shouldn't be in the UFC. Every time I think Ryan Spann's gonna win a fight, he always lets me down just by being some fucking dumb, retarded, fucking fat fuck who has no discipline, no cardio. I don't know. He just finds the dumbest ways to lose, and it pisses me off because part of me is always like, maybe he can do something against this guy. Like he was giving Bogdan Gushkov a little bit of problems. But unfortunately, Ryan Spann is too retarded to be an actual UFC fighter. And whenever I watch him fight, I'm thinking, oh, we gotta burn the Apex down. All right, last but not least, for the Hall of Famers, we got Mateusz Gamrot. Now, fun fact about Mateusz Gamrot: this dude is undefeated in the UFC, UFC Apex to be specific. Like every time he's fighting in like crowds, he can he can find himself in a controversial decision. Or whenever he's fighting in the Apex, this dude is a different animal. You know, this guy beat Armin Sarukian, and he looked very good doing so. He also beat, I believe, Rafael Fiziev, but that was by telekinesis leg break. And overall, I think Matej Gamrot, there's a clear difference between when he fights in the Apex and when he fights in front of a crowd. Because when he fights in front of a crowd, he does tend to crotch sniff a lot. Like when he fought Rafael Dos Anjos, like after he got dropped in the first round, Gamrot just like barely worked for positions in that fight. So yeah, I do kind of understand why the UFC would prefer to keep Gamrot only in the Apex, but the dude's very solid. He's very good. He's undefeated in the Apex, and overall, I think when he's fighting in the Apex, he's a lot more fun to watch. So I'd say Matej Gamrot, he has a Hall of Fame Apex career. Moving on to the crafty vets, we got Rob Font. He has lost a lot of fights, but they're not against scrubs. He's lost to like Davison Figueiredo. You know, who did he also fight in the Apex? I know he lost to Corey Sandhagen, but I'm not even sure if that was in the Apex. But regardless, he has lost a lot of fights in the Apex, but he has won some. Like he fraud checked Kyler Phillips when people, including myself, thought that Kyler Phillips was the next up in the amongst the bantamweights. And Rob Font, he's very talented boxing wise. If he gets you in the later rounds, he could potentially beat you. It's just that he's so chinny and he has zero takedown defense that I don't consistently trust him to win fights. And it shows because anytime someone actually shoots takedowns for more than 2 rounds, uh, they're able to win comfortably against Rob Font. But yeah, overall, if you can't do that though, Rob Font is very good and he will probably fraud check you, which is why I think he's a crafty vet. Maybe a couple or more wins, and he'll be a Hall of Famer very soon. All right, moving on to the all rights here. We got Sergei Pavlovich. Dude has a lot of fights against the top ranking heavyweights, but you gotta consider this. Most top ranking heavyweights are just fat fucks who don't train. Sergey Pavlovich, yes, he's a fat fuck, but he also trains like judo and jiu-jitsu, which I kind of rate. Like he submitted Derek Lewis with an armbar in the first round, I believe, and even against Marcin Tybura, who also should be on this list, but considering that Sergey Pavlovich beat Tybura, I think Sergey Pavlovich established himself at another level to the Marcin Tyburas. I think he's overall all right. Every time he fights someone like very good in the big stage, like Cyril God, he does get absolutely bodied. But in the Apex where there's no crowd, this dude performs very well. And I think if the UFC recognizes that, gives him like 3 fights in the Apex, I reckon we can potentially see Sergey Pavlovich fighting for the title, which is crazy to say. All right, moving on. We got the Apex NPCs. We got Joe Solecki. I don't understand how Joe Solecki can be a black belt in jiu-jitsu and he doesn't have any sort of success in the grappling. I don't even know if he's won a fight. I know he's lost his last 3. Fair enough to decent level opposition like Grant Dawson, Jared Gordon. I forget the third one. But anyways, Joe Solecki, every time I watch him fight, it's genuinely depressing. And he just pulls guard every time. And I don't find that acceptable. He's not as atrocious like these guys over here because Selecki has some form of like aggression, I guess. But overall, Selecki, every time I tune into his fights, I figure like I'm just gonna put this on the background because I don't really care. I don't really care for him, and he that's why he's in the Apex NPC tier, unfortunately. And last but not least, the you can interchange this with his brother Justin Taffa, but I'm gonna put Junior Taffa here because he fights in the Apex more often. I don't know why Junior Taffa is still on the roster in 2025. You know, he's clearly not good. Got submitted by Volter Walker in the first round. I believe he got destroyed by who the fuck was that guy? That refrigerator looking guy. Marcos Marcos the Lima. I don't know who that guy is, but like, anyways, Justin Taffa. I've never seen him win a fight. I really haven't. I know he's won like maybe one or two back in the day, but since like 2023, he's lost every single fight, and it's because he refuses to train. He just refuses to do that. He doesn't train any takedowns. He can't get in shape to fight, and on the feet, despite being a top 5 glory kickboxer, he can't check leg kicks, he can't throw hands, and he can't throw kicks. He's just a fat sack of shit who just stands there and lets his opponents win. And ironically, he'll fight like more seriously outside of the cage. Like I remember he was gonna threaten Walter Walker outside of outside of Australia, like outside the venue for UFC 305. And if you're a guy who wants to fight more outside of the UFC than inside of the UFC, then we don't need you here. We really don't. And hopefully, if the UFC Apex burns down, we never get to see Junior Taffa fight because Junior Taffa fighting is simply a disgrace to modern day mixed martial arts. And the fact that he's signed in the UFC in 2025 is a disgrace. All right, that's going to be it for today's video. Leave a comment down below who I forgot to include in the UFC Hall of Famers tier list. And also leave a comment down below if you generally agree with this list. But other than that, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.